So, hello everyone, and welcome to this month's Grassroots conference call. I hope you're well, and of course that you've enjoyed the last couple of months since we last spoke, because we didn't have a conference call for July. I wanted to start off with a couple of thank yous. So, firstly, obviously, thank you so much to all of you who came, and if they couldn't come, contributed to a fantastic day last month celebrating 40 years of results in our Westminster kind of event. It was a really great day. And I guess, in my humble opinion, I feel like it really summed up what results is about: the power of citizen voice, the strength of acting in solidarity, and a real belief that it is the role of our elected representatives to serve our interests and be accountable to us. A highlight of the day for me was, of course, Jill's fantastic speech. Jill, hearing your stories of what campaigning means to you and how you've dedicated so much of your time for campaigning to end poverty, particularly around disability and education, was really powerful and inspiring to hear. And I
Thank you.
know for a fact that it inspired others in the audience who had less experience of results and the work that we do as grassroots advocates. So thank you so much for that, Jill. On the day, we had in total 9 parliamentarians in attendance, which is a really amazing effort and is in large part down to your lobbying to get them to come down. And I was wondering if anyone who was able to meet their MP on the day and have a chat with them, would you be able to share about what you spoke about?
Yeah, I will. I'll kick off.
Go on, Jill, you kick
Kathy.
off, and then maybe Kathy afterwards can also.
Yeah, it's Kathy. I met my MP. I'd only invited him just a week before, and he came. His name is Greg Stafford. He's MP for Borden and Haslemere, I think. I haven't got the hang of that. Um, and he's a Tory MP, and he came in for all the speeches, heard them all, and then he came with one of his researchers afterwards and met with us. So what I talked to him about was TB, um, and I told him some of the good news stories that we'd heard in the morning from the FCDO, and I was very upbeat about it. And I was also introduced to um, a doctor, a pediatric doctor who specializes in TB. Um, Robin, I've got his name anyway. And I asked him about, was it true that children in the UK couldn't get the medication? He said, yes, it was. So I said, well, you come over and talk to my MP when I do, which he did. And he spoke very powerfully about that. And they exchanged details and going to keep in touch. So that was really good.
Kathy, do you want to quickly share about the quick conversation you had with your MP?
Yes, I think there was sort of three things. Because vaccination programs was on my mind because of the morning, I asked him why polio was being neglected. I talked to him because he's Labour. I said to him how terribly disappointed I was about the reduction to zero point 0.3. And he agreed with me that he was terribly disappointed too. And the last thing I talked to him about was, because he's quite a young, new MP, I said to him something we'd been told in the morning, that if you've got a backbench MP from the government in as your MP, the most it's very, very useful for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to have their support for a letter. So getting the MP to send the letter on our behalf to the head of the Foreign Office or whoever it might be is very powerful, because the whips are all keen to keep the backbenchers happy. So the Secretary of State or Minister will pay more attention if it's a backbench Labour MP at the moment. So he was surprised to hear that bit of information. I'm not sure that it's going to change his behavior, which is that he's always ignored any time I've said, please, will you forward this to the Secretary of State? However, at least I had the chance to say it to him face to face, and he was very positive. And also, I should say, he also thought Jill's speech was amazing. So,
Oh, thank you. What's his name?
Chris Murray.
Thank you. Oh, that's good.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jill and Kathy for sharing that. And that is a great tip about sort of the power of backbench MPs, particularly Labour backbench MPs, and the fear that the Whip's office is going to lose control. And I think maybe made even more salient by the topic of this week's call, which will be discussed later. So a second thank you goes to all those who have taken our campaign actions over the last few months. This includes obviously people who have written to their MPs, inviting them to come to our event. So thank you to all of those, including Andrew, Janet, Ricky, Karen, Jennifer, Kathy, and also Michelle, who's not on the call today, but has already taken this month's action, writing a letter to our new PM, Andy Burnham, more of which we will get onto in a minute. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to complete these actions, and please do fill in the I Took Action form on our website if you have done so. As you all know, this is really important, as it means we can track the letters that get sent to parliamentarians, and it means that people in Lucy's team can sort of, who's just joined the call, can sort of follow up with the MPs that we've contacted, and it means we can have some sustained pressure. So I've just put the tab for that, the link to that, sorry, in the message box. Before we get into the main topic of this call, which is discussing this month's action and then the sweeping political changes that have happened in the UK since we last spoke, I wanted to give you a quick update from Results UK. One of which is a report which was written by Results colleagues from the UK, US, and Canada, looking at the role of integrating nutrition in the fight against tuberculosis. As you may remember, Sunit Bagri, who is a former member of staff at Results, did a lot of work on nutrition and integration. So it's really great to see that our colleague Sahira Ramzan has continued that work. And the link to that report, if you'd like to give it a read or share with your MPs at some point, is in the chat box now. Alex Runswick as well, who is Director of Policy Advocacy at Results, has also written a blog welcoming the new Prime Minister and highlighting what should be his priorities for international development as he gets his feet under the desk. More of this will be discussed by Lucy tonight, but do give this blog, which again is in the chat box, a read when you get the time. So two more quick things. As you know, to mark our 40th year, Results has been looking at how we can sustain ourselves going forward in this kind of increasingly volatile and unstable environment that we find ourselves in. Because of that, we have launched our Friends program, and Kitty mentioned this at our 40th anniversary. Friends are people who regularly donate to Results on a monthly basis to fund our work on poverty eradication. I know a lot of you have dedicated hours and hours of your time to campaigning and may not feel this is something that you want to be doing as well, but I'm sure you know that we're in a much changed times. And if you would like to know more about becoming a friend, you can do so using the link shared in the chat box, or you can email my colleague Amy Wilson, whose email I've also just shared in the chat box now. And she'd be very willing to chat about what it means to be a friend and kind of also why we're asking at this specific time. And the last thing, as you will have seen from recent newsflash editions, we are looking for candidates to join our board of trustees as a grassroots representative. The deadlines are on the 24th of August. And if you'd like to know more about what the role entails and how to apply, you can follow the link that I've also shared in the chat box. And do reach out to me or Stephanie Brooks, whose email's in this document, if that's something that you're interested in. So, after all that, on to the main topic of the night. As I'm sure most of you will know, we have a new Prime Minister. But what does this actually mean for the country, international development, and our campaigning efforts? To give a rundown of what has happened since we last spoke and what is likely to change, and also what might stay the same, we have Lucy Drescher with us on the call, who is the Director of Parliamentary Advocacy at Results UK. Lucy, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
From lovely Suffolk. And I hope, just to start off, if you can give an overview of what's been going on in this sort of next turn of what seems to be a never-ending roller coaster of UK politics over the last 10 years.
It
And
certainly
then
does, doesn't it?
also how this might impact our advocacy.
Okay, so yes, never-ending change. We keep on talking about the fact that 7 prime ministers in 27 or 20 years or something like that. Anyway, stupid number of prime ministers. So you'll have all have watched Keir Starmer being forced to step down basically by his party, and Andy Burnham winning the Makerfield by-election, doing it, beating reform, showing that he could do that. And so therefore no one decided to stand against him, and he was made Prime Minister. And the interesting timing is he was made Prime Minister right at the end of the parliamentary session. So he was in Parliament as a backbencher for a short time. He had the opportunity to speak on one or two things, particularly, I think you might have noticed, the Hillsborough Law, which was one of the things that really mattered to him as an Everton supporter and someone from that part of the country. And then he became Prime Minister literally at the end of the parliamentary session. So he hasn't had to do Parliament Prime Minister's questions time or anything like that yet. But he has had a very busy 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks where he kept really busy. Sorry, I've lost track of time. But he's now on holiday, I gather. And so he's not appearing so much on our screens. But you will have noticed for the first 2 weeks, he was constantly on our screens with different new policies, and in different places. He was popping up in Barrow-in-Furness, in North London, in Derby, all these different parts of the country, because he's got a passion for all different subject, all different important areas of life. And he wants to show, I guess, at this point, that he cares, that he wants things to happen, that he can make a real difference. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of watching it thinking, yes, I really want all those things. Yes, I want him to be able to do it. But I have a worry underneath about whether he's got enough money to make it all happen, and whether there's going to be issues once he tries to make it all happen. But, you know, we all have to wait and see, don't we, as to whether he can make all these things happen. A particularly exciting one for me was the thing about social care. I don't know what you all think, but we've had a long time of talking about social care. And so it'll be great if he can actually do something about that. Anyway, he became Prime Minister, and in his first day, he started to appoint his new cabinet. And he made lots and lots of changes to the previous cabinet. I think very few people, I don't think anybody stayed in the same place. So Yvette Cooper, who was Foreign Secretary, has now moved to be Secretary of State for Health. And she has been replaced by Ed Miliband, who was Energy and Net Zero. And Ed Miliband has been replaced by Miatta Fahnbulleh. So it's those were sort of a bit of a swap around. John Healey, who was Defence, who'd stepped down, is now Chancellor. So some of those faces and then some new faces have popped up. So a real mixture of things. So we now have, in the department that we particularly focus on, FCDO, we have Ed Miliband in charge as Foreign Secretary. And then we have Kirsty McNeil, who has been brought in as a Minister of State for Development, and I'm not sure whether she's also, I think she's also, in the same way as Baroness Chapman was, Minister for Africa. And Ed Miliband has written an article in the newspaper in which he says that development and climate change are the two big things that he's going to take forward as Foreign Secretary. That's really positive to read. Very good in terms of, we would love him to think about development, and also that links so much to climate change that I think that's also really good for us. We have to obviously see when he gets into his role in terms of how much he gets drawn into foreign affairs as to whether he can bring those two together, whether he can make it work. But that's really positive beginning in terms of Ed Miliband for us. Kirsty McNeil is an interesting and hopefully good choice in terms of us. She, in her past life, worked at both Oxfam and Save the Children. So she knows the development world quite a bit. She worked on the 0.7 campaign when she was based at Save the Children. So she knows that very well. When she first became an MP in 2024, she became a minister in Scotland. So she's also had experience of being a minister. I'm just trying to remember what level of minister she was. She wasn't actual minister for Scotland. She was kind of underneath the minister for Scotland. But she's had experience, and she has done some interesting messages on LinkedIn about the kinds of ways she likes to be approached. So whether there are things to read about her and what she thinks is important about the way you portray messages to her. So that's really worth looking into, worth looking her up and reading about the things she's got to say, I would say. She, I think she is going to be somebody who, so from my observations of her in her past life at Save the Children, she's very into she's very into campaigning in terms of lots of loud voices. And I think if she hears from lots of people, that could make a big difference to her. So I think she is going to be someone for whom hearing from lots of you, hearing lots of other people is going to make a difference. So I would say, that is going to be worth doing with her. She does have knowledge, but one of the things is she doesn't have a particular passion in development. So I guess hopefully she is going to find some passions within her once she starts to meet her different teams within FCDO, when she starts to learn about different topics, that she might start to find the things she feels passionate about. But when she was working in the development field, people talk about the fact that she didn't have one particular thing that was important to her. So I guess it's up to us to make our issues important to her and put them on her list. So that's something I definitely think we're going to need to work on once Parliament comes back, and being loud about things. One of my concerns about Andy Burnham is that because he's got so many things he's promising, so many things he's passionate about, is if there's not enough money to go around, I'm worried he's going to, like other people have, think the development budget is an easy target. And I think we're going to have to be loud to show that that's not a good idea, that's not a good plan. And so I think it's just a question of us kind of being loud. He talks about a number of different things. He believes in doing the right thing. So like the moral type of argument is going to work better for him because he believes in doing the right thing. He believes in disrupting systems and not just going by vested interests. So therefore, he will believe in doing things differently, hopefully. He talks a lot about his constituency, about Makerfield that he represents, which is near Wigan. And he talks about the Makerfield test. Is this decision going to work for my constituents in Makerfield? If it is, it's a good idea. If it isn't, I need to ask questions about that. So that's something we need to think about a lot. Would it work for his constituents to make this decision or that decision or whatever? So I think all these things are going to be important when you write your letters to him. When you think about the kind of ways of messaging things, I think we are talking about quite a different Prime Minister who's got quite a different approach. And so the moral argument, thinking it's the right thing to do, will count, but also it has to work for the people of the UK too. which isn't, we've been always needing to bear that in mind, and certainly everything we've been doing with linking the UK domestic work and the international work certainly feeds into that way of thinking. I think I've just seen in the chat Jill say yes. So Anna Gelderd, who I think a number of you met last year. Was it last year, Jill? I think you were there. We set up a meeting with her to talk about, was it last year or the year before? Sorry, anyway. She is used to work at Results UK, doing our nutrition and education work in the parliamentary team, so I know her well. And she became an MP in 2024. She's been a parliamentary Undersecretary of State in Ed Miliband's Department of Education and Energy and Net Zero. And she has now moved across to be a parliamentary Undersecretary of, no, PPS, not parliamentary Undersecretary of State, parliamentary personal something secretary. Anyway, it's kind of like the most junior kind of person who works with the ministers. She's moved across to FCDO with Ed Miliband. So that is really good news. You're absolutely right, Jill. Anna really gets all our issues. She's very supportive, and she's someone who will answer my texts and respond to us and knows Results UK well. So I think that's also a really brilliant appointment for us. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of the new situation we're in. I think it's another disruption. It's another group of people that we need to get accustomed to things. But I think hopefully there's some really good news in there and some really good positive things for us all to work with. Hopefully that's a good start, Will, in there in terms of questions.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Lucy, for that sort of general overview. So I thought for the rest of the call, I might ask one question, and Lucy, which maybe you could answer, and then if we just open the floor to kind of general questions about some of the political changes and maybe some of the tactics that we can use kind of going forward. And my first question was particularly about this month's action. So I guess kind of in the action, we've laid out this sort of two-step approach, which is one, explain to Andy Burnham how kind of development spending fits within his Maker field tests and passes it. And then this next point being like, and because of that, make a kind of clear plan to kind of put spending back on the agenda. Do you think that thing of with this government, that's going to be the angle, that it's about kind of tying the domestic and the global, and then also really asking them to kind of put their money where their mouth is, and the importance of asking them to do this now, because I imagine a lot of people are going to be wanting to have Andy Burnham's ear. So kind of getting on board quite quickly is quite important, isn't it?
All right. Yes, you're absolutely right, Will. I think right now is a really good time. It's right at the beginning. He's passionate. He's got lots of ideas. He's ready to get going, and he hasn't yet decided where all the money's going. So I think this is a great time to get onto his list. Keir Starmer, you may all have observed, was very good on the international stage. He was very good in all the international meetings. He was there a lot. And so there is the definite impression that Andy Burnham, in response, wants to be very good domestically. He will, not saying he won't go there internationally, but he's really focused on the domestic a lot and really making a difference, because Keir Starmer was criticised so much for not making the difference to people's lives, to their standard of living, etc., their coping with all the bills, that kind of life. So I do think that linking the domestic to the international is going to be very important, because the domestic matters so much, that we need to show. And also the Maker field test, it's got to work for his constituents. It's got to work domestically as well as internationally. And so many of our issues do, and do make sense to work on both together. But I think we really need to be thinking in that way. I think you're absolutely right. Definitely.
Fantastic. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? The floor is yours.
I think that Jill already asked a question, actually. Kirsty Minell is not a member of the cabinet. Do you think this is something we should be pushing for? Yes. So Baroness Chapman was a member of the cabinet. attended cabinet meetings, and Kirsty McNeil is not, as you say, Jill. Yes, I think it is something we should be mentioning, because it is a concern that development isn't in that forum, isn't being talked about. It's something that, as an organisation, we have put in our letter to the Prime Minister and also the Foreign Secretary. So we do think it matters. So yes, I agree with you, Jill.
When you say you've written a letter, is that in the public domain, or
we wrote it from the organisation, so Kitty signed it. So we haven't put it on our website or anything. No, but we don't usually do that, Will, do we? But I don't know whether we.
No.
But we
I'm
have.
just
It's one of
thinking,
our key asks. Is
yeah.
what you're saying? Yeah.
But this Makerfield test, have you done a bit of work on that to say, how it benefits the people of the UK?
I think we do it on each different issue separately. So, like the work on domestic TB, meaning that if you do, understanding TB. I mean, I think maybe you'll have talked about it when you went to FCDO. I don't know, but all the progress on TB benefits domestically as well as benefits internationally. Vaccines, development of vaccines quickly benefits domestic as well as international. That kind of thing. I also read. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, also in our action that I've just shared on the website that I've just shared in the chat, there's quite a nice section where it sort of breaks down in some quite easy bullet points if you want to use that in your letter.
Oh, good, thank you. Yes,
how the sort of some key examples of where the sort of domestic and the global work and benefit the UK. Lucy, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else, or does Richard want to ask his question?
Happy to move on to Richard.
Perfect. Go on, Richard.
Ed Miliband, Foreign Secretary, should we be writing to him now while he's on holiday and he's got time to think about us?
Well, I think that the action isn't aimed at Ed Miliband, is it, Will? It's Andy Burnham, the action this time.
This month's action is aimed directly at the PM. If you do also want to write to Ed Miliband, I think there's absolutely no harm. And I mean, more than no harm. There's real benefit in also getting on his agenda. It's interesting. I saw in this article that Ed Miliband wrote, I think it was in The Guardian, that Lucy was talking about, which I will try and find. Ed Miliband sort of spoke about some key sort of things that he wanted to focus on alongside climate and some other things, and global health wasn't mentioned. So I do think emphasizing when we're talking about the interconnectedness of the global and the kind of the national, I think it's very easy to see that in economic terms. Obviously, with things like the Strait of Hormuz and oil prices, it's very easy to see that in climate terms because it hasn't rained since January. But it's maybe less obvious for the public and parliamentarians to see that in global health terms. So I think in my opinion, I think that's something that's worth getting on his agenda, that sort of level of interconnectedness, which isn't maybe currently in the public kind of messaging, even when Ed Miliband is making a lot of the right noises around that sort of thing. I think he's slightly missing that point. So that's kind of a personal thing.
Aaron, I think you should copy your MPs into the letter to the PM so they know you're writing to the PM. I think that's a good idea. Yes.
Does anyone else have any questions on the action or on the political changes over the last 6 weeks, I guess?
Well, I just want to say, Pete here, that I always copy my MP into any letter to government. So he knows what's happening. Yeah.
He knows how active you are.
Mm.
And he can follow up as well, can't he?
He does sometimes.
Brilliant.
I do sometimes.
It's really good.
Depends. My last letter from him, I don't think I've returned it to the office yet, was a bit anodyne and not as personal as I expected. So I don't know, maybe I'm losing my touch.
He's been made, your MP, Pete, has been made a parliamentary under secretary in housing.
Has he?
Look him up.
Okay, thank you. He's
Another,
got a lot. Go on.
I was just going to say, Lucy, another question I had for you was about Yvette Cooper moving to health secretary. And I was wondering whether she's obviously, I mean, she wasn't in the post long, as no one is these days, but in that time, it felt like she gained some good knowledge on kind of development issues and stuff, and was broadly engaged, particularly with the kind of replenishment of the Global Fund, and David Lammy was Gavi. So she was quite engaged with the Global Fund replenishment. And is there any sort of way in which we can use her role as health secretary? Obviously, her responsibilities fall domestically, but in which we can use that in our letters?
Yes, I think so. So we have also written to her as well as, so we wrote a collection of letters. As an organisation, we wrote to the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, Health Secretary of State for Health, Foreign Minister, and Development Minister. Yes, she is responsible for all the overseas development aid that's spent by that health department. So she is important, absolutely. Unfortunately, Preet Gill was the minister responsible for that spending within the health department, but she's not there now. She went for a short time, and now she's gone again, which is a real shame because she did represent a Results UK campaigner, I think, in Birmingham. But we will look into which specific MP minister within Yvette Cooper's department represents that. But yes, she is important and an important person to us, yes. And also so often when we're needing to link the domestic and the international, we need to bring in the fact that, for example, the development of vaccines, the faster to be able to respond to a pandemic situation, the importance of a TB vaccine, the importance of the way that vaccines are provided. All these issues matter both domestically and internationally. And I read a really good, interesting article today, actually, about the way people in Yorkshire, pretty sure it was Yorkshire, were not taking their children to have the vaccines because there wasn't that relationship with a local GP or somebody. And so they'd set up a specific centre more locally to just do vaccines and get people back into doing vaccines. So they weren't anti-vaccinations, they just didn't get around to it. And one of the things I thought was when we'd been to visit, Ethiopia, we saw different levels of the health system, from the very most local, so that people wouldn't have to walk so far, to the more regional, to the national. And that ability to reach a health centre where you can get a vaccine is so important. And maybe we've got to the stage where we need to learn from other countries about making, having more community. Certainly there are places where in the UK we are starting to adopt the method, the system of community health workers, which is something we've seen a lot in other countries, where you actually have people based in the community who are doing health kind of work. And perhaps that's, a lessons across, which will link the domestic and the international as well. Does that I don't know if I'm rambling here, but I'm trying to sort of talk about those links that I think are important, and why you might get people not receiving vaccines in one country and also not receiving vaccines in the UK for different reasons. But there are lessons to learn across from, both, as to why it doesn't happen, but how key it is and how important it is.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions about this month's action?
Mm.
So Ricky has put, I'm a bit nervous about the Makerfield test. We go on about nutrition, education, tropical diseases in faraway countries, and we are appealing to a sense of solidarity.
Yes. Solidarity. And also, Ricky, that doing the right thing. Yes, security is a key one. Yeah, I mean, certainly, if we let tropical diseases spread and not, if we don't sort of, particularly, I think this is particularly in our area, this final beginning to develop a TB vaccine that's going to make a really big difference. We do have people traveling to different countries who are, TB is traveling, and that is being able to develop that vaccine and us being part of that, the UK being part of developing a vaccine, then working with the Global Fund to make sure it gets to other countries, and and working with Gavi to make sure that it's including with the vaccine schedules, does link here and the international. But I think doing the right thing as well as security, perhaps with both of those, Ricky, I don't know if that helps, but I think you're absolutely right. Solidarity, working together, and but health security, people are, in terms of health, that is a worrying thing, I think.
I think that I'm a bit nervous because obviously Andy Burnham's made the Makerfield test very salient.
Yes.
And we're arguing essentially for money, and so is everybody else. So people who want, better playgrounds in parks, or more libraries, or more parking spaces outside clinics, or less dog poo, or all these other things are much more easy to, they're going to pass the Makerfield test long before people like us saying that in faraway continents, which people in Makerfield aren't visiting, neither am I, there are people who don't have food security or don't have education, and this is kind of on us, really, and we need to care. I'm nervous about that. It doesn't seem to work with the Makerfield test very well.
No, you make a very, very good point, and I do think we need to think carefully about this. In terms of nutrition, with the drought here, they talk quite a bit in the newspapers at the moment about us beginning to worry about our food security, don't they? That the failings of the crops here mean we might end up in some of the situations that people in other countries are in, because our crops are not doing well, and so we're going to rely on other countries. So whether that means we can learn lessons, and that things that are work that takes place in other countries can also benefit us because we can learn about it, whether that's one way to approach that kind of issue. And in terms of vaccines and the sort of work of Gavi, very much benefits, the price differentiate, the fact that other people can get vaccines, and we need vaccines too, and we relate the issues. Perhaps we do it that way, and certainly spending money on research and development, because that's going to develop, so the money within Yvette Cooper's Department of Health, the fact that she would put money into the development of new vaccines, new ways of doing things that would benefit not just us, but other countries, but also benefit UK companies. That's definitely a benefit. Education is always a little bit harder in terms of making the case, but and we never want to go down this route of saying that people wouldn't come here if they had better education in their own country. That's a horrible one, isn't it? We don't want to go down that route. But I think you're absolutely right, Rick, and I think we need to keep thinking about this, how to make that case in the Makerfield test. But I think have a read of the action and see if any of those examples help.
I'll
But
definitely be reviewing the action, which I, to my shame, haven't really looked at seriously
no.
yet.
So, yeah.
I wonder if, like, so in my head, there was a thing. So back in the days of David Cameron, he was very in favour of the 0.7%, but he never stood up publicly and defended it. And the defence would be, with respect to the people of Makerfield, if we simply say that because we're in economically hard times, we see the poor of the whole world as the people to punch down on and say, well, we have your money then. It's just a morally bankrupt thing to do. So the government requires, a requirement of government is moral leadership as well as simply making the economy add up. So that might be too high-minded. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's too high-minded, because I do believe he's a person who wants to do the right thing.
There, you said
Andy
that,
Burnham,
yes.
and so
that's a good sign.
I do think so. And last week I joined a webinar, and one of the people speaking has worked with him quite a bit. And he was trying to think through the international side of things and how we would make the case. And one of the things he emphasized was he is a man who wants to do the right thing.
Yes.
And so actually, we've been moving away from that moral argument a little bit more recently, but actually, perhaps we do need to go back to some of it again, in terms of and saying it is the right thing to be solidarity across countries, caring about other people, it sort of maybe is part of our message now.
Well, that is included actually as the final point of why it's sort of important to the UK. We have included that it's the kind of the right thing to do. So yeah. So I do think it's worth emphasizing that, and again seeing kind of what sort of response we get to kind of that message, because I think also what's both, I guess, and Lucy, you can speak to this more than me, but I guess kind of frustrating and but then it's also quite interesting about when you have these big kind of changes in government is you're trying to figure out how they go about things and what angle works and how we get through. We're all trying to figure out how we get through to them. And I guess it's the same with your MP and then with kind of constituency MPs. But I think finding that messaging of what works and what gets through to them and how we can kind of speak to them on their level is really important.
I agree with you. And Jill has put into the chat the fact that Andy Burnham is a Roman Catholic. And I've read someone else saying about they were going to use that approach. Certainly you will be able to write in Roman Catholic places, which is brilliant.
Yeah, but it's Catholic social teaching is a real body of solidarity, and it's the morally right thing to do and how we should be doing it. And I think that's a really good angle.
He should follow you. You're quite a prominent Catholic writer now, aren't you? So, Jill,
I've already written him a letter signed by a lot of Catholics got in on what the Catholic organisations got in on to ask him not to
Can he follow you?
Rosebank, the oil field, not to go down that route. Well, it was quite a weak letter. They could have done much better, but I signed it.
Very good. If he goes on the tablet online, can he follow you as a writer?
Yeah, updates.
No, not the tablet. But if he looks at another one, I don't write enough for them. But there's other places. But in the Catholic world, there's a lot of things about him going on. But it's just when you were talking about getting an angle on him, I think one of the things that we need to do is I put it about Janet, I think, has replied to it, that this guy who's Desmond Swain, he's introducing this babies bill. I did mention that to my MP, and I did the old thing with it crunching up the paper, for nutrition and all that. That have we got any links in the New Forest West? But my MP, he's a Tory as well, and he was very keen on that, and he was all ears to listen about the first 100 days, 1,000 days. I think that maybe is a way in. I mean, this Desmond Swain's a Tory, so. But I mean, if you've got a Tory MP, it might
Might be good. Yes.
yeah.
And
But I think that bill's going to get a lot of parliamentary support. You couldn't disagree with it, really. It's
No.
just interesting that he's come up with all the things that we did years ago, about the first 1,000 days and that. It's good.
I guess he must be
think,
working with some of the nutrition organisations. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been looking at the health people as well, and there's the MP for Bury North is a parliamentary under secretary. I've got contacts in Bury, a lot of contacts, and I'm just thinking about how we can sort of put pressure on him about the TB.
That would be
Well,
Do you know where it's up to though? That where are they still in a sort of looking at it sort of thing?
thank you, Elena.
The
who's just jumped off.
TB strategy for the UK.
Yes.
Gosh, the minister got moved again. So
Yeah.
Sharon Hodgson had replied to Sojan and Nick saying that she would meet them about it, but then she got moved. So it's got passed across to another new minister. But Sojan and Nick, who are chairs of the APPG TB, are going to pursue this along with they've got a strong member, James Asser, who's also who's an MP in Newham. So they are going to pursue this again as soon as Parliament comes back. But it's very frustrating that they keep on changing minister.
Yeah, I mean, my MP is quite excited about it because Guildford is not very far away, and the University of Surrey is doing a lot of research on TB. So I came at it from that angle. So he's actually very interested in it, but I know, I need to follow it up, and we need to be putting pressure. So it's a bit niche, but if it can make a difference,
Well, often we need to we need to do the general things, but we also need to do the niche things. We need to do a mixture, don't we?
Is the office considering doing a chart of the structure of the new government for the network to be able to see who's who and what's what?
We can do that, I think.
Yeah. It is out there on the internet. I saw a pictorial thing of it, which is why I saw that Anna Gelder had been done. I can't find it again.
What is this?
But if you go on the FCDO website, it says what their responsibilities are.
If you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, it usually has the ministers and people then.
Okay.
But we can certainly also just...
It's worth having a look.
Yeah, we can look at putting something together. Okay. Thank you all very much. I'm going to kind of formally close the call there. Lucy, thank you so much for speaking so well and answering all our questions on an array of topics. And I hope that everyone feels sort of like they've got more of a sense of kind of what's going on, and kind of how what angles we might be taking for this new government, and also how we can best write our letters for this month's action. So do give the action a read. It's shared in the channel, and you can obviously find it on our website. And do write your letters, and then please do fill in the form once you have done so. But yeah, thank you all so much. Have lovely evenings.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Lovely to see you all.